You need great headshots. My name's Darren. I'm a headshot photographer and a 25-year acting veteran, 15-year SAG member to help answer some of your industry questions. And today we're going to talk about headshots and kind of everything that goes into it because there's a lot of questions most people have. What is an acting headshot? What does it look like? What should I wear? Where do we shoot? How much does a photographer cost? Where do I even find a photographer? And hopefully in this video we are going to answer all those questions that you have. And if I don't answer one of them, well, then let me know in the comments and I will address that particular question at a later video. But for now, let's dive in. And we're going to start with the first question of what exactly is an acting headshot? And I think an easy way to talk about that is to first tell you what an acting headshot is not. Because it's not a corporate headshot. It is not your senior photos. And it's definitely not a glamour shot. And it's not even really a portrait. And because some of you might go, well, I have a friend of mine who's a portrait photographer. I'll use them. And this is nothing against portrait photography, but a lot of times for like a portrait, they're looking at doing the portrait. Yes, it's of you, but then with some artistic improvement on it. So you would have things like color filters. They're throwing the photo into Lightroom and they're doing these presets to wash it out or to highlight certain colors. So they're using filters as one of them. They'll sometimes use unique backlighting, again, to give it a really cool style and a really cool vibe. Or they'll use some other sort of cinematic lighting. So they'll light half of your face and then the other half is dark, which does look really cool. Except when it comes to a headshot, because that type of photo for a headshot is absolutely, utterly worthless. And I don't want you wasting your time getting on shots that ultimately cannot be used as a headshot. If you were to submit them to an agent, they're just going to throw them right back into you. That's like, okay, we like your look, but call me back when you've got real headshots. Don't want you to get stuck into that trap. It's definitely not any of those type of photographs, even though, yeah, they're a photograph of you. Essentially, what an acting headshot is, it's your business card. It is your brand. It's the beginning of the creation of your brand. Because most of the time, if we kind of just pare it down to the basics, it might literally be the only thing that a casting director sees in order to either bring you into their office for an audition or to invite you to send in a self-tape. So it not only has to be an accurate representation of what you look like, and we'll get more into that one a little bit later in the video, but they need to rock. They need to grab the attention because a casting director's looking at their computer screen and it might have 30 different thumbnails of headshots. And if yours doesn't stand out, it's going to get missed, glossed over, and you won't be called in for the session or you won't be asked for a self-tape. So things about it need to pop. And that's what the purpose of a good headshot. You absolutely don't want a that'll work headshot. That'll work headshot won't work. That won't get you called into the office. That won't get you invited for a self-tape. And it defeats the whole purpose of having a good headshot. So your headshots need to rock. They need to be great. And that's why you have to invest in kind of my next question here, which is, how do I find a true headshot photographer? Now, when I say a headshot photographer, it's somebody who understands acting headshots. Because you might just do a search under headshot photographer and you're going to find a lot of people who are portrait photographers, which we just talked about. They might be corporate photographers, that might be their specialty. All of which could be really good in their specific genre, but that's not a true acting headshot because a lot of acting headshot specifics that have to go into that particular shot. So you need to find somebody who understands the nuances that are going to make your headshot pop out more than others. So if you're in a major market, Google becomes your friend. It's easy to basically type in your city and say top acting, again, please put that in there, top acting headshot photographers, and you're going to get a fairly significant list. You do that in LA, and you're going to have people like David Muller, Michael Roud, could be Todd Tyler, Joanna DeGeneres, and I'll be honest, my personal favorite, just because I shot with her, Stephanie Gerard. These are some of the absolute best photographers, headshot photographers in LA, because that's what they do. That's all they do. It is their specialty. You're also going to find those photographers in other areas outside LA. So in the major markets where you're going to be like, it'd be Miami, or it might be New York, or it might be Atlanta, or New Orleans, or places like that. You're going to be able to find those. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is also if you're in an acting class or you're involved in other actors, ask about their headshots. Take a look. If they're gonna be more than happy to show you the shots that they have, and if you like them and you're like, "Well, those are awesome." We'll find out who their photographer is, and then book a session with them. Again, those major markets, you're gonna have a lot of people whose sole dedication is acting headshots. Now, you might be asking, "I was like, wait a minute, I'm in a smaller market. What am I gonna do?" Well, there's 2 things here. I do know of a couple of photographers, and this is just ones I've seen. I've never even really researched this because I haven't needed to. But they will go. They're LA headshot photographers that travel. So they love to travel, but then they incorporate them being a headshot photographer into that. So they might go to an area like good example would be Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is kind of this up and coming film area. A lot of stuff has been filmed there recently. I've got friends, some stunt guys. They've gone to Tulsa a couple times in order to do some filming. But if you don't have a strong base of headshot photographers there, they do have traveling headshot photographers that'll come in. They're from LA. They're top notch, absolutely top notch. They're not bailing from LA because they can't hack in LA, but they love to travel. They love to see other areas. So while they're there, you might have an opportunity to shoot with them. I know Jeff Nicholson is, and I've shot with him twice. He's one of the ones that does that, and he'll travel from place to place and do headshots there. The other option would be to then kind of do as I said before, Google those top LA headshot acting headshot photographers and then look at their websites, look at their galleries, look at their Instagram pages, and get a feel for how those images look. How much lighting is on the face, just the style and the overall vibe that is in those photos. And then go to some of your local photographers and look at their Instagram pages. Look at the photos that they have uploaded as examples of the style that they shoot. And then basically try to find somebody who's very similar in style or is a style that you like, and then have a conversation with them and tell them is, look, I need acting headshots, but they kind of need to look like this. And then you show them the headshot photographers from LA then let that photographer get an idea of what exactly it is you are looking for in those photos. And they're going to be able to look at it and go, okay, yeah, we can do that. Because a good photographer isn't going to look at that and go, okay, here, this is how it's lit. It's not cinematic. It's not odd lighting or whatever. They're going to be able to add to that and hopefully give you good headshots for a smaller market. So one of the other questions that always comes up is, okay, I found the photographer, but now how much am I going to be expected to pay? And I'm just going to touch on this because this is kind of real basic. Well, some of that is going to be based on who you choose as the photographer. If you get somebody who is up and coming, doesn't have quite the portfolio, you might be able to get them for a little less money. You are taking a little bit more risk because, again, they're newer. So you're saving a little bit of money, but might you be compromising on the quality as opposed to going to somebody like, as I mentioned before, who I've shot with Stephanie Gerard, who I know is going to be probably $700 or $800 for the session. But because these headshots are my business card, because this is how I am presenting myself to casting directors and to production teams, I need them the best they possibly can be. Now, I live up in the Tahoe area now, and I will fly down to LA to have my headshots taken and then fly back because I understand how important it is to have the absolute best headshots that I can get. And I'm in a unique situation that I can do that. I mean, not everybody can. But if you can, I would almost highly suggest that. But you want to get the best. So that's going to run Stephanie's going to run seven or $800 as opposed to somebody who might be new and local and they might be 250 for the headshot session. It's also going to depend on how many looks that you are going for, whether that's 2 looks, 3 looks, 4 looks. That's kind of the standard with a lot of packages. Some will offer more, maybe a 5, or they'll say, okay, for every additional look, it's going to be X amount of dollars. So session fee is 250 for 3 looks. If we're going to go 4 looks is 350, 5 looks is 550. I've actually shot with photographers that do have a package that would be, hey, 90 minutes, it's this amount, and it's as many looks as you can get in. So if you're a little more experienced and you're wanting a broad variety of shots, that might be a decent thing to consider if you know you can nail good looks, boom, 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 and can just fly from look to look to look to look. Now, one thing I want to talk about is what I mean with a look. So I'm in a blue t-shirt right now. So if this was one look, for it to change into another look, I'd have to completely change the shirt. So it'd be like me going from this t-shirt into a business suit. T-shirt would be one look, the business suit would be then look number 2. Now, I can sometimes, if I keep the same t-shirt on, I can go from this look to this look simply because I added the jacket. Most photographers are not going to consider this a different look because it was something that you were able to put on very, very quickly. The look really becomes a difference of if it takes time to change your clothes. So, say you started out from this, took a number of photos, and then simply got rid of the jacket. I'm now still in that same look. I know it's the way I do it, and most photographers do it that way as well. So, that's the look. The other thing you might have to pay for, and I don't guy or gal, it does not matter. Pay for the makeup. Now, guys, the reason we do this is because it cleans up all your skin tones. It makes the skin look a whole lot more uniform. So you're definitely going to want to do that. And you're not going to have, let's face it, guys, most of us can't put on makeup very well. And if it does, it would probably look like Bozo the Clown. So have them do your makeup. It cleans up the skin. It also, these are makeup artists that the photographer works with daily. On a good, true professional acting headshot photographer, they work with them on a daily basis. So that makeup artist knows the look and the type of tone and makeup that the headshot photographer loves to shoot with. Ladies, same sort of thing. I know most of you can make yourselves look amazing with your makeup, but here's the thing. Ladies, you don't want to make yourself up too much. So you might have a look with just candy apple red lipstick and you look hot. Yeah, but it's not a good look for your headshot. You don't want that. You want a more very natural look in your headshots. You don't want the makeup overdone. You don't want the lipstick and the eyeliner and just, you know, I always make the recommendation whether you are a guy or a gal, it does not matter. Use the makeup artist that the headshot photographer likes to use. It's going to make things better for you. It's going to make things better for them, which means you're going to get better headshots. So that is going to be an extra cost. Guys, it usually ranges around $75. Again, it depends on the photographer. Ladies, usually a little more makeup. So you're looking in the neighborhood of probably $150, sometimes up to $200. Again, it just depends on the photographer. Usually those rates are listed on their websites. Now, what should the headshot look like? And This may seem obvious, but it should be in color. And I say that jokingly because when I started in this industry, well, started probably 27 years ago ish, headshots were black and white and they were shot on film. There were no color headshots. So that was just the industry standard. And then once digital kind of came into more of its own, it was much easier to do color headshots. But it started out as in black and white. And so you, you show somebody a black and white photograph now, um, you're going to date yourself really, really quickly. And it's going to be obvious that that headshot is archaically old. Standard size when we did have hard copies was 8 by 10. And I say when we did because we would print them out and you'd print out in bunches to be able to give away. So that industry standard was 8 by 10. And that's always just been a source of contention for me because we would have to then print our resumes and on pieces of paper and put them on the back. But when your resume is 8.5 by 11 and your headshot's 8 by 10, now you're having to trim the paper every single time. It's like, why can't we just get paper that matched up? But that's a side story. So they're normally 8 by 10. Nowadays, not as big of a deal because you're uploading the digital image to the casting sites and you're using their cropping tools for whatever aspect ratio fits best for their site. So you're less dependent on getting a true 8 by 10 size. And now, however, if you are asked to provide a hard copy of your headshot, and I will tell you this, I'm not sure I could tell you the last time I actually had to provide a hard copy of my headshot, but just on the off chance that you ever would, they are a standard 8 by 10. One thing about the headshots too is you don't want to say you've gotten the digitals back from your photographer and you have some photo editing software and you want to kind of bring it in or crop it out a little bit because a lot of the times the photographer might shoot a little further away and that gives you more flexibility in how you crop the photo. But you don't want to crop it where it's going like straight across your forehead. And the reason behind that is simple. If this is where the photo stops, the casting director has no idea if you've got hair. You know you've got hair. The photographer knows you've got hair. The photo actually shows you got hair, but you cropped it in a way that it's directly across the forehead. So it's a source of frustration for casting directors because it doesn't happen very often, but I have seen it happen. And I heard the term hat fishing once in people talking about dating websites. And it was guys who wore a hat because then you couldn't tell, are they bald or do they have hair? Well, if you crop straight across your forehead, the casting director is in that same situation. They don't know, are you bald or do you have hair? Or do you have some major receding hairline? So be careful where you crop it. Basically, right where the hair follicles kind of start to end, that's the top of the photograph. Anything above that is useless because it's just background and they could care less about the background. You pretty much is from here to mid chest. That's what your headshot should look like. It's not a 3/4 shot down to mid thigh. It's not down to your waist. It is mid chest to just at the top of your hair, of your hair. That's your headshot. So definitely not cropped in too much. Also, you should be looking directly into camera. So like right now, I'm looking right at you. And that's how your headshot should be. You should be looking into that lens of the camera like you are looking into someone's soul, not one of these. You might make a nice photograph, but a casting director wants to see your eyes. They say the eyes are the window of the soul. That's what they want to see. So, standard headshot is not something looking away, it's not a contemplative shot. You're going to have different expressions, but it's going to be looking directly into camera every single time. You'll, in fact, not even looking into camera, just almost looking through and beyond. So make sure you look directly into that lens. Let's talk a little bit about distractions in those headshots and how they look. So you don't want to wear a bunch of distracting clothing, but I will Give that a little asterisk because we'll talk about that one more in a second. But for the most part, you don't want your clothing to be distracting. You don't want the makeup to be distracting. You don't want jewelry to be distracting. You don't want these, ladies, you don't want these odd looking earrings that are all sparkling that's what's going to draw the eye. What you want to draw the eye are your eyes. Nothing should distract from the face. That's the whole point behind the headshots. Again, this is not an artistic sort of photograph. This is to present you as you look to the casting director. So keep the distractions to an absolute minimum. The only time I would give a little caveat as far as the jewelry is concerned is if that effectively is part of your brand. And what I mean by that is that you have a lot of facial piercings. So you're giving a very alternative sort of look. But if that's not your brand, then I mean, to keep it simple, just get rid of all the jewelry. No watches, no earrings, none of that. Just keep it simple. It is about you and who you are and what you look like as a person, not the little things you're adding to it. This all brings me to what I consider my most non-negotiable, and that your headshots need to look like you. And you're like, well, Darren, of course they're going to look like me. No, not necessarily. Because if they are over filtered, over photoshopped, way too much makeup, your headshots should look exactly like you do when you walk into that casting director's office or on the self tape that you have been asked to submit. There shouldn't be any confusion, and I've seen it. I've seen it personally. I'll give you an example. Just probably about 10, 15 years ago or so, I went in for an audition for a short film. The casting director and the director were both at the initial auditions. This is back when we were still given hard copies of our headshot. And I walked in and gave him, it was a guy, and I gave him the copy of my headshot. And I will never forget the words. And this is it verbatim. I quote, "Finally, somebody who looks like their headshots." And you could tell he wasn't I mean, he was happy that I did, but he still seemed very perturbed that it took that many people to come in before he actually found one that the headshot looked like the person that was then standing in front of him. And that's the key. So he was kind of upset with the others, more pleased with me in that situation. So make sure they look like you. I heard it once said that a good headshot is the one your mom's going to love because it's the one that looks most like you do. Think about a casting director's job. So they're calling in people either into their office or for a self tape based on the breakdown for this particular project. And the breakdown is a physical description of what the character looks like. Again, not what his background is, not what his resume was, but what the character looks like. And it could be very generic. It could be early 20s Caucasian female. And it could be very, very specific. It could be, oh, I need, mid-30s. I need a male, Caucasian, blonde hair, blue eyes, but the hair is long. And they're bringing people based upon headshots that match that description as much as possible. So if you don't match your headshot or look too much of a deviation from that headshot, and they're calling you in expecting one thing and get something different, they could easily X-nay you from that off. Let me show it to you visually. This right here is an early headshot of mine, and it worked really well. It got me called into a number of casting offices, but you notice the hair is significantly shorter in this, or I should say, is short in this particular photograph. And then that summer, on a bet with my wife, guys, I tell you right now, do yourself a favor, don't make bets with your wife. But on a bet with my wife, I grew my hair out. And instead of cutting it, I'm looking at it going, you know what? I kind of like this look. It kind of vibes with a little bit more with kind of my persona. It was like kind of shaggy surfer hair look. And, I grew up in SoCal. I was a surfer. That that was kind of me. And I'm like, I like this. So I kind of did a snapshot, sent it to my agent, and said, "What do you think?" And they came back. They're like, "I like it." Now, granted, my agent at the time was also somebody who was very much into X Games, skating, things like that. So he liked the look a lot. So now I was in a situation where my current look was no longer what I looked like. So guess what I did? I had to get new headshots. It was either get new headshots or get my hair cut back to how it looked so that I would match and not get the casting directors upset. Now this is that new look. And I know what you're thinking. And you're right. I look like Owen Wilson. In fact, I actually went to an audition and the casting director looked at me and said, "You need to call Owen Wilson and get your career back." Oh, okay, I'll do that. Funny thing was, still cast me for the project anyway. So I guess it wasn't something that was bad, but it worked for me, and I got a lot of auditions based on that particular look. So go with what works for you, but make sure what your physical appearance is right now that you look like that. And if your looks change significantly, you got to get new headshots. And here's something to think about too. What if that change is temporary? So you book a role, you sign the contract, and they want you to color your hair, whether it's darken it, lighten it, whatever it may be. Or in my particular case, I had booked a role for a documentary about the Donner Party, and they wanted me to grow a full beard. Well, I like the scruffy look, or I was clean shaven, but a full beard I'd never really had before. And I didn't want to do a whole new set of headshots on something that I was probably only going to have for a couple months. So I called in a solid on a photographer friend of mine. I said, "Look, I just need one headshot that shows the beard." And so what my agent was then able to do was submit my regular shots through the casting sites like Actors Access and casting networks, but then was able to add that secondary shot in saying, "Look, he has a role. It's filming on such and such date. He'll have this look until, April 3rd or something like that. This is his look right now." So they know what the look could be. They know what the current look is, and everybody's on the same page, which they're fine with because it looks good for you in a sense because, wait a minute, this guy's booking on something else. It's like, I want him to book, but he's booking other places as well. So it kind of makes you look good in that respect. And it also shows a certain respect for the casting director. So last thing I want to touch on are the two different types of headshots. And that's going to be on the commercial side and theatrical. Now, commercial, warm, inviting, always smiling. And if you think about what is a commercial, it's an attempt to sell a product. So when you're in that commercial, you're effectively a salesperson. And salesperson want to be trusted. And that's why it's kind of that warm, very ingratiating sort of look to make you feel trustworthy to whoever is watching that particular commercial. And then theatrical, it's gonna be that little more gruff, maybe a little more moody, maybe a little more cocky, depending on the particular look that you're going for. But that typically is no smile. So commercial smiling, theatrical, you're not smiling. But you have wardrobe for those because that's the one question. It's like, what do I it's like that from the movie, The Grinch, where Grinch goes, "Oh, what do I wear?" Well, wear outfits now that are going to complement whatever roles you are trying to go for. And in this digital age, it is so much easier. When I started, black and white, everything was shot on film. You shot in chunks of 36 because that's how many exposures you had on that particular roll of film. So if you did three looks, one for each roll of film, you only got about 100 options to be able to choose from for your headshot. Because of digital, you have a so much greater advantage in the number of shots that you can take and the number of shots that you might be able to use, which means you can integrate more looks, more outfits into that. So for both commercial and theatrical, you might have a lab coat on. So that's if you're doing a pharmaceutical commercial or you're doing Grey's Anatomy. You might, you wear a suit. So if you're, the businessman looking to buy a nice car, or You're one of the lawyers on Suits. 2 different looks completely. And even the suit look can be a little bit different. You have that kind of high-powered CEO, you know, tie drawn up nice and tight. But then you can also have that cocky young lawyer who just won his first case and got his client $5 million, and it's the day after, and you're having a beer, and the top button is undone, and the tie's loosened up a little bit, and you just got that cocky, oh hell yeah, I own the world sort of look. So there's that. There's for women, there's battered housewife, there's the CEO, there's the the housewife sort of look. All these looks can be integrated. There's the athletic, that goes for both genders as well. So there's just a tremendous amount of looks that you can put into that, and what you wear should promote that look. So if I'm going for to be kind of that, badass fighter street guy, I might wear a beanie and a tight fitting tank top and let any of my tattoos show through to kind of give a real threat sort of look. My facial demeanor might be really almost scowling, but it's to give that look for that type of role. Whereas if I'm the young dad, just nice t-shirt, here I am, different look. You remember earlier in the video, I talked about your clothes shouldn't be distracting, but I also said there was a little asterisk caveat to that. And here's a good example that sometimes the expected looks change. And one of the looks that we can do nowadays is kind of that young hip dad. And what personifies that look has become this. Yeah. It's the slightly louder, maybe a little bit obnoxious kind of Hawaiian shirt, whatever it may be. 10 years ago, I would not have worn this for a headshot session. Now, I did this for my headshot session to give that look. So this could be the young fun dad. This could be the guys hanging out in the backyard having a beer, doing a barbecue. But that's what kind of the hot look is right now. And a really easy way to determine what that hot look is or what other actors are doing currently right now is to go back to those some of those headshot photographers I referenced earlier, the major LA headshot photographers like again Michael Roud, David Muller, Joanna DeGeneres, Stephanie Gerard, and look at their IGs, look at their Instagrams, and see what it is the actors are wearing on the headshot sessions that they post. Because what those actors are wearing right now, that is what the casting directors are seeing in the profiles when they are having those pictures submitted to them. So if you want to be in the know, you should always kind of be watching what the top headshot photographers, what the wardrobes are that they are shooting their clients in, and make sure that you've got those wardrobes in your repertoire as well. That is my condensed, maybe not so condensed, version of what you should be thinking about and the various aspects of what you should be thinking about for headshots. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, be sure to check out the other videos I have about the acting industry and other questions that you may have about it. Really appreciate if you feel so inclined to hit that subscribe button so that you'll be notified when I got other videos that are coming out. That is headshots from a guy who's been in front of the camera and a guy who's been behind the camera and still is in both instances. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button so you can see my other videos and stick around. YouTube thinks you might like this video as well.